the marketing guru with a mouth and a personal brand of quick-witted humor, the now billionaire Ryan Reynolds seems like he has done everything right. Today, us movie beings will jump on the Ryan Reynolds bandwagon to dissect some of his early work before his rise to international fame, but mainly to express our admiration to this hunk of a man.
Beans? Beings.
That's great. Who doesn't love a bit of Ryan Reynolds?
Oh yeah, well, as you can see, I put a small photo of Ryan Reynolds, and I intentionally put Ryan Reynolds on my side.
I see.
Just so that I have
watching out for Deadpool, or you just want Ryan Reynolds to be a bit closer?
No, I just want Ryan Reynolds to be closer to me. We selected a small selection of his movies to discuss today. The first one that we want to start with is Life in 2017. This one was released between Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2.
So an interesting time.
Yeah.
Like literally just coming off like probably the most successful movie he's probably done.
Yes.
Of Deadpool.
Yes.
Into this is kind of interesting, really.
I think this movie was already in his schedule, right? So he was shooting this movie and then it got released in 2017. Probably he didn't think that Deadpool would be as big as it was.
He might have even thought this might have been bigger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was just playing like a supporting role in this movie.
Yeah, because it had like, with Jake Gyllenhaal and like some other, big name actors, and even like it seems like a big sci-fi movie, right? And you're like, oh, they're not as successful anymore, but I mean, like, it seems like one of those big, it's trying to be a blockbuster movie, right?
Yeah, and this movie got a bit similar budget to Deadpool. So this movie was on a $58 million budget, and it grossed only $100 million worldwide. So in terms of the recipe, it's not like a successful movie.
It probably just broke over or just made a little bit of money, right? Probably didn't do great.
Yeah.
I thought it looked pretty well for like that budget.
Yeah.
Like I thought it looked pretty good, like with all the graphics and even them in space and stuff, looked pretty good.
Yeah. And a lot of the critics believe that this movie is like a combination of Alien and the sci-fi movie with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock when they are...
Gravity?
Gravity, yeah. Yeah, that's it. So like the setup shots is very similar to Gravity when you have like the space station floating around. But
I will say, a view of space is always quite beautiful, right? So it's like an easy thing to start off with, right?
Yeah, but it reminds me of the 2001 Space Odyssey somehow.
That's like the original, right?
Yeah, that's the OG.
But like you're saying with Alien, that's like the cookie cutter thing for horror, like alien horror movies, right? Where it's just like there's a group of guys or people in, caught in a small space, whether it's in outer space, underwater, or in like a facility, and they find something like, oh, I wonder what this is.
Let's poke it with electricity.
Let's poke it. Or in the original Alien, it's like, oh, he just got incubated by a giant alien thing. I'm sure he'll be right. He'll be fine with us.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's definitely a bad idea. But I must say I was pleasantly surprised with Ryan Reynolds' performance in this movie.
Yeah. I thought his character was quite good because he was literally like a down-to-earth, like a person. He was just not like, he wasn't... Yeah. Most of the people on here were like highly educated, like doctors, what was
the exobiologists?
Yeah, like they're all
the quarantine officers, etc.
Yeah, they're all quite scientific people, and he was just an engineer. Even though, like, I'm sure you have to be quite smart to be an engineer, but the qualifications for that compared to like poking an alien with a prod is like a lot different, right?
But are you referring to Big Bang Theory? Like Sheldon keeps making fun of Howard for being an engineer
when it's not like...
Guess what? Engineers are just as smart as physicists. You take that back.
Not really. I don't like Big Bang Theory and I've never really watched it, but...
Ooh, controversial.
Is that controversial? But like, that's like... that because he even says it in the movie himself. Like, when Hugh gets in trouble, he goes to him. He's like, I'm more disposable than you are. I can like...
Yeah, there are 5 guys that can work, do my job, but there's only one of you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think in terms of his performance in this movie, it's surprisingly down to earth. He's a bit of a loudmouth, cursing.
Joker, stuff like that. Kind of like more of what you see from Ryan Reynolds, right?
Yeah, but this is a bit different because he cracks the jokes as part of his personality. It's not he's like that all the time.
It's not just being Ryan Reynolds.
And I could see a bit of insecurities coming out of his character as well.
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. And I feel like he does it as well when they're in a serious situation. He kind of cracks a joke to kind of like try to help the mood a little bit when they're like, someone's dying, and he's just like cracks a bit of a joke because it's just like, well.
Yeah, and probably for himself as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, because he definitely seems like he's friendly with everybody and gets along very well. So when it all kind of goes to shit, he's like willing to like sacrifice himself to go to the lengths.
Yeah.
Because that's all we notice about his character in this as well, Rory.
Yeah.
He's willing to do the dangerous stuff because the first thing in the film is he goes to catch the sample in the giant satellite or thing that's flying in space. He's like, oh, you're going to try catch that? He's like, yeah, I'll be right. I used to play baseball. I can do this. It's like, bro, this is a giant thing flying through space.
Yeah. And after that, they were doing a briefing at the end, and some of the officers were saying, like, oh, you missed this step. No, I didn't miss this step. He reminds me of like the Maverick in the Top Gun. He was just like winging it. He just uses the instincts to do the task. But if we want to talk about his performance, I guess we can talk about the one scene that he has the most screen time. That was when Dr. Huynh got stuck in the lab, and no one else wanted to open the door to come in and rescue
the alien
him.
fights back.
Yeah, the alien fights back.
Because I think at this point it had like gone comatose. It hadn't like it stopped moving, and they're like, well, Hugh was freaking out. The others were like, whatever, let it be. And he's like, I'm gonna get this a little shock prod and see if I can shock her back to life. Yeah. And then he shocks her back, and the alien's upset. Yeah. And then like grabs his hand and mangles it up. That was brutal.
Yeah, that scene was brutal. And during that sequence, no one would come in to rescue him
because it's protocol, right? It's meant to be like a
quarantine.
Quarantine, exactly. So they're like, I think it's Miranda's character. Yeah. She's just like, no one go in there. This is dangerous. Yeah. Like, you could see when he actually comes out, his hands like
all broken,
and he's knocked unconscious as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like shit. No one's going in there. But Rory or Ryan's character was like, no, I'm going in. Stuff you guys.
Well, we established that he doesn't really follow protocol. Like he missed a step, and he likes to do things outside the books. So he was the first one,
and kind of being more of like willing to do what it takes to save like a friend, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not. He does say later that like we mentioned before, that he thinks like Hugh's more important than he is. Yeah. But I think it is more, he's like, nah, this is the right human thing to do, right?
Yeah.
It's not so protocol driven.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that Rory's character brought a lot of humanity into this movie. I don't want to talk about this movie too much, but I think when it gets to the second half, it seems like all the humanity of the characters just went out the window.
Obviously, there's a giant alien trying to chase them, but even the alien kind of loses its interest a little bit as well, I feel.
Yes.
Because if we talk about how when Rory dies, that was brutal.
Yeah.
When he like crawls inside his mouth and stuff. I was like,
that's horrible.
Because it sets up obviously that it chokes things to kill it. Because just before that, it kills the rat, the test rat they have there, and it like chokes it and like eats it. And I'm like, oh god. And then that's obviously what I was trying. You see it later that it tries to choke people out when it tries to eat it, even though later it does. Who does it? It like beats it. It beats the shit out of. Oh, who's the Japanese guy? I like that. Show. He like gets his head beaten in by it. I'm like, oh, that's a bit of out of a character for it, but I know the spaceship was falling apart and they're flying into space or whatever, but we're not trying to get into that too much, but I do agree kind of like the later half. Like I knew going in, I think I've watched this once before, I didn't remember it too well because obviously after you watch it, you see it is a very cookie cutter, like horror sci-fi movie. Yeah. I don't think it does anything, because I think it does have a good cast.
It does,
It has some great actors and actresses in it, but I feel like they do this a lot in Hollywood. They don't utilize it enough.
Yeah, but I guess that when you are in a movie with a lot of strong actors, it's very hard for you to stand out, and it has something to do with the director that can allow these actors to shine as well.
It can also do with the characters they have as well, because even Jake Gyllenhaal's character, he wasn't like that interesting, I felt.
So he's supposed to be a doctor, so David Jordan. He's a medical officer. So
two first names?
Yeah, David Jordan.
Like Ricky Bobby?
Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby.
No, but I was surprisingly disappointed to see Jake Gyllenhaal character in the second half, because like during the first half when Captain Cat went outside, tried to fix the communication antenna, and then she got stuck outside. That was the most human that I noticed from this character. Like, he was crying, he was trying to get his teammate back in.
Yeah.
But ever since after that, he just acted like a robot.
It's all the goal was trying to like survive or figure a way out. There wasn't much more time for like development, because I felt like there wasn't. That's like the Alien thing. It's like, that's what I think the Alien does so successful. That early part of Alien, they like build up the characters quite a lot. So it's more meaningful later when, get into like the dangerous actions.
Yeah.
I feel like they did try to do it with this, but not quite. They kind of go over every character when they get interviewed by all the kids.
Yeah.
And then they all kind of go over every character and kind of what they're doing. But Because that's what I mean. Like Jake Gyllenhaal, I'm like, I feel like his character either maybe not fleshed out enough or maybe not enough there. Because the whole idea was he's like, that's what he feels like his job is, to just be in space. This is where he wanted to be. He doesn't feel, he didn't, because he's there the longest and doesn't want to leave and stuff kind of. And I'm like, I get it, but it's just like, maybe flesh that out a little bit. But we don't want to dive too much into why the other characters weren't that great. But I do think Ryan was good in this. Like,
I think so too.
It kind of suits how he acts as well. Like that's. I do say he does his Ryan Reynolds things a lot, but I think it does suit this character quite well.
I agree. And I think in the sequence where he fought the alien in the lab, I think people tend to forget that Ryan Reynolds is a good actor. In that scene, you could really see his fear and his uncomfort, and he know that his life is in danger.
But we see that a lot in another movie we're about to talk about as well.
Absolutely. All right, so I think we can move on to the next movie. Now, in this movie, Ryan Reynolds is a lot younger.
Really?
Waiting. I think he's about 20 years younger. So he's 46 this year.
Yeah.
So that was when he was 20.
Because when Waiting's 2004, 5.
Yeah. So it's nearly 20 years ago. And this movie was written and directed by Rob McKittrick. And this was his first movie.
First movie?
Yeah.
Honestly, for a first movie, not too bad. Because like you said, I think he said it has a small budget as well.
$3 million during 2005. And the movie generated $18.6 million in box office. And 16.1 of that is domestically.
I feel like in the early days, that's how you found like good directors, or tried to find good directors, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with, I guess we have talked about Wes Anderson, but his first movies are very like low budget.
Yeah.
But found a bit of success, and that's where you get eyes of like people in Hollywood. It's like, oh, they can do something.
Yeah.
And even like, I feel like it's on a lot of the actors and actresses in this as well in Waiting. I feel like Ryan Reynolds,
Anna Faris, Justin Long.
I feel like they do a very good job of like portraying like a young kid in like a restaurant trying to figure out life. I feel like they're all very charming in their own way.
Yeah. One of the illogical thing about this movie that I want to bring up straight away.
Which one?
The first one is all the main characters appear to be losers, right? But they all have attractive girlfriends.
Well, they're the only ones.
Especially the chef.
I think it plays into like the whole restaurant thing a bit. Like we've both worked in kitchens and restaurants, so we kind of understand the dynamic. This is very extreme, even for then. Like, obviously, this is before I even started working in a restaurant. This is filmed, but it's all very extreme of how all like the chefs and the waitresses act. I will say them complaining about like, the people they wait, it's fair enough. Yeah. Because there are people that crazy. Yeah. Because there's early on at the very start, there's the group of ladies, and there's one lady complaining a lot.
Oh, that lady is so... Oh my God. It's so funny because she's very familiar. I'm pretty sure we have run into one or two of those customers before.
Yeah, but at least we're in the kitchen. We don't have to, we only stress about when it comes back, and we're like, all right, whatever. Yeah. But when you're, the waiter or the waitress, and you have to deal with them personally, and you can't just like yell at them unless they're doing something really terrible, but Yeah, and another thing that I really like about this movie is it's only set up in 1 day of work. Yeah, I love that as well.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of set up starting work, like lunch, and then dinner. Yeah. And then, because I do like the layout of the whole movie, because it starts off they're partying. Yeah. And then it jumps into their day of work, and then they all come in the next day. Yeah. And then they go through the work day, and then at the end of the movie again, it starts off them all going back to partying again. Yeah. Kind of that atmosphere of like... Yeah. There is a little bit of that in like, in the restaurant culture of kind of like after a day's work, go out and drink and keep going. But
that was one of the illogical things as well, because let's say if you party until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, if you work in the restaurant, you have to start a bit early, right? Especially if the restaurant is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
We're saying this is lunch,
so only lunch then.
So we'll say lunch, but then even then, you got to get in at least by 10 or something, right?
Yeah. For the story, we follows Mitch, the new guy, and he's being trained by Monty. And I must admit, the first conversation with Monty really threw me off guard. They came in, okay, the first thing you need to know about this place, Mitch, it's a game that we called.
Yeah, right. He goes straight into the bloody who sees the dick.
The dick showing game. And this game was invented by Radimus, the head chef, as well. But yeah, let's talk about the Monty character played by Ryan Reynolds. This character reminds me of Deadpool so much, just without the mask.
Like I said, it's kind of like Ryan Reynolds. I think this is a movie that really shows like his humor and his wit and his charm quite a lot. because he's always kind of like cracking jokes or not taking things too seriously or like perving on women. And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
But like he is a bit of a creep. I remember when I watched the first scene, literally the first note I wrote, I'm like, he's a bit of a perv. And they literally call him that. I think his ex, Anna Faris, literally calls him a pervert later in the film.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I must put a disclaimer out there. I think a lot of the humor and language in this movie would not fly in today's
No, it's
very
much of the like 90s, early 2000s kind of vibe. Even a bit late of 2000s, I feel like there were movies that would like lean into this kind of humor, because I do think there are funny moments, but they like use the F word a lot when they with the dick game, because they're like, you see a dick and you're gay and therefore you're an F word, and it's like it's a stupid joke. It's very juvenile. It's a very juvenile joke, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, and outside of the language, there are a lot of different scenarios, like hitting on the underage girls.
There's the underage girl who's like not like the maitre d', but like the receptionist, if I can say the words out of my mouth, because she's just like welcoming everyone in and putting them to tables or whatever. But even she's like 17 or whatever. Yeah. And the whole joke is like Ryan Reynolds' character Monty wants to sleep with her, and he's like, I'm not going to sleep with you until you're like 18 or whatever. Yeah. And it's just, But even without him, the manager of the place, she I think she like slightly flirts with him to mess with him. But he's like fine with being like, he's got to be in his like 40s or something, right? And he's like trying to sleep with like a 17-year-old girl. And I'm like,
that was really wrong. I agree. And when it got to that sequence, I was like, I hope that this doesn't happen. And I think the director is aware of this. So that's why when you get to the sequence later, when Monty actually had the chance to sleep with this girl, she's like, oh no, I'm going to wait until
I'm going to wait.
Yeah, right.
And then he literally tells her, like, if anyone asks you if we slept together, say we did. Because he still needs to keep up this persona of him being like a weird pervert, which is insane. Because like, outside of like some of these like creepy shit he says, he doesn't seem like a bad dude. But it's just like, come on, bro. Like, it's still creepy that it's like, I'll wait till you're 18. It's so creepy because there's still people with the internet now. Everyone can say whatever. Like famous pop stars or even actresses. I could name a few, but like once they get to 18, people are like, oh, now they're fair game. It's like, bro.
Yeah.
That's like, come on. Like,
that's crazy.
It's just like, that's the feeling. I do think the director was a bit aware of it, and like it doesn't come off as bad as it could, but it still seems bad. But there are people that are like that in like I don't think I've ever seen that in the kitchen I've worked with. That I don't know if I've ever noticed it or ever seen of like.
I have seen one.
You have where like an older guy's like trying to come onto a younger girl, whether or not she's of age or not, but just being creepy.
Oh yeah, 100%. I have seen that.
I haven't had the chance to see it, but I'm glad I haven't. I guess maybe, or maybe I haven't seen, like just haven't seen it.
Yeah. You intentionally block it out.
Well, no, but that's what I mean. There's nothing that oblivious to me. There could be. I might have missed it, but
no, that's okay. I mean, it's not like something that you really want to see,
especially if you're working.
Absolutely. And I really like the fact that this movie kind of dance like jumping between the lines of like very edgy and very dangerous topics. You know, it's like, you know, messing with the customer's food, hitting on underage women, drugs and all that things, you know, like. But if we just focus on the Monty's character for this, I think this character was developed from Ryan Reynolds' earlier movie, the Van Wilders. So he was the guy that stuck in high school, and he doesn't want to lose the persona, the cool
being
guy
like
image.
The cool guy from high school. Yeah, so it does come off like that, right?
So now he graduated from high school. He works in this restaurant, and he doesn't want to lose the cool guy image either. Yeah. But I think you're right. I think in this movie, Ryan Reynolds doesn't really have to try hard to act.
No,
like he just acted like himself most of the time.
Well, that usually it can be a good thing if it's like good for the role. Like even in life, when we're talking about life before, it does suit the character quite well. You know, there are other movies he does that like they cast Ryan Reynolds to be Ryan Reynolds, and it doesn't do well. I feel, but for waiting and in life so far, the character, it is good that it is Ryan Reynolds. I think it does play quite well. At being like the cheeky perv, or even like the down-to-earth guy that like cracks jokes.
Yeah, and I think it only works when the supporting cast has a bit of a opposite personality as well. Like in this case, his best friend.
They all call him out.
Yeah. And in this case, his best friend, Dean, played by Justin Long, he's the guy that, you know, is a bit lost. He doesn't know where he wants to go, and, you know, he's being pressured by all his peers being successful and things like that.
It's more when he was talking to his mum in the morning, and his mum's like, "Oh, your friend." It's like Chet from high school's already like
electrical engineer.
Yeah, he's already finished his diplomas and he's already getting a new job or whatever. Yeah. And he's just like, "Oh, come on!" Like he's just like, "Oh, thanks, mum." And then he's really like thrown him through a spiral because he's still waiting tables or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though he's only 22.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's 30 and he's lost, even at that age, it's not bad. But I mean, like,
But this is a good thing for this particular movie. Like we spoke about this before. This movie had a sequel in 2009. It's called Still Waiting. And that was a straight to DVD movie.
I'm sure it was great.
Oh my God. I watched the first 15 minutes of it. And it's literally a copycat of the first movie with the same joke-cracking main character. The young waitress came back for this movie.
Oh, she came back.
Yeah, which was a bad idea. But yeah, without Ryan Reynolds' charm, like the main character doesn't work.
Was she the only returning actor or actress?
The angry actress came back.
Oh, the angry waiter, actress. I thought she was great in the movie.
It's great. Naomi. And the manager came back as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but he came back, but now he's a regional manager of different restaurants.
Oh, shenanigans.
Shenanigans. He's a restaurant chain. Anyway, so I think the main storyline that we follow with Dean, the thing that he's trying to figure out what he wants to do next with his life, and he doesn't want to be stuck in this job when his friend is being successful, I think is a very relatable story.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it really helps anchor the story down to be like, okay, at least these guys, they are still trying to do the right thing. People are still rooting for them to do the right thing and to succeed. Even when his best friend might be a bit of a perv, a bit of a creep, but he means well. Yeah. That's the thing. But in the sequel, the main character, straight up the bat, like he's acting like Ryan Reynolds, but he has no good intentions whatsoever, or at least us as audience can't see it. Yeah. There's a side character that I want to bring up for this movie as well. Bishop, the dishwasher guy, the in-house therapist. Yeah. One of the sequences that I really like is the conversation he has with Dean, and he just went on like this restaurant before, it went downhill, and then the new head chef started, and he started this game. Yeah, it's like you're gonna have to start your new dick showing game. It's like it kind of makes sense in the most creepiest way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what the hell do you mean? Like, what game do you have to think of to not deal with this shit anymore? But it was quite I do enjoy that kind of him figuring out what he wants to do with himself. Yeah. Because even a lot of people that do, not everyone that goes into waiting, is working to do something else or is studying. But, it does feel like a job that's like a tide over to something else. Yeah. But that's what it feels like it is for him. And he probably hasn't realized, because in the movie, Dean gets a promotion, and this has really thrown him through it, because it might be good just because it's like it does lead to something else, but also does that mean I'm stuck here now?
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's what really got to him through the whole movie. But yeah, that's why it's good when Monty has that conversation with Monty, and he's like, "Oh, well, remember the conversations I had with my mum?" And then they cut to him the conversation he had with his mother, and I'm like, "This is oh my God,
this is basically like Deadpool, having a conversation with his mum."
Just impregnated that girl I just slept with and stuff. I'm like, oh my God.
I really like Justin Long's reaction in this sequence. He was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think we need to say much about Ryan Reynolds' performance in this movie. He's basically just being himself, really. Yeah, and it does come off well. I think it is kind of like a fun, older comedy, but I said, it does have some inappropriate stuff that a lot of inappropriate stuff. But yeah, well, I mean, if you like to enjoy this movie by yourself when you're high or drunk, I think this is a good movie to enjoy. Yeah. But I think we can move on to, I guess, our favorite movie out of the selection.
Definitely.
And in Ryan's interview, this is his favorite project to date as well. So the movie is Buried, released in 2010. And this movie was directed and edited by Rodrigo Cortés. So this movie is an international collaboration. And on a budget of $2 million, it generated $21.3 million worldwide. And Ryan Reynolds is the only movie star in this movie.
The only actor you see on screen.
Absolutely. For 90 minutes. it's not easy to maintain the attention of the viewers for 90 minutes by yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
You haven't seen this movie before.
No, I haven't. I'm a bit sad that I hadn't, but I'm glad I've watched it now because I thought it was a very, very good movie.
Okay, so what was your first impression?
Like going in, I knew the premise, obviously. It was buried underground.
Yeah.
And it was going to be interesting to see how it goes. But because it's just like, it does do a good job early on where it's like, he's like lost. He's trying to figure out he's looking around the coffin trying to figure out. Obviously, the first thing he does is scream for help. Because what else do you do when you're trapped in a damn hole?
Yeah.
And he's just trying to like find his bearings. He has his lighter. He's like trying to click on. He has like a little flask that you can hear. I think he's still in the dark and you can hear him like untwirl it and like take a sip from it.
Yeah.
So it like captures the atmosphere really early on of like what you're getting into.
Yeah.
It does a great job, I felt. And even like the usual shot, like the wide shot of the like the side of the coffin is like the one they use the most.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder how they'll play with this, but I felt like it did a great job of capturing like Ryan Reynolds stuck in a box.
I agree. I think that the cinematography of this movie is really, really well thought out. And I actually wish that they make more movies like this.
I think it's hard because I think the story, it's hard, right? Because that's what, I think there was maybe 1 or 2 weak moments that I thought like, did this need to be in here? Because I felt like there was already a lot of story kind of, considering it's just a guy in a box, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of interesting stuff going on there. But when we get a bit further down, I'll mention it. But it's just like hard to think of a story about someone just being trapped, even if it isn't in a box, like in a room or in like a small space.
Yeah.
It's hard to capture the idea and like story.
Yeah.
To like make it go through, right?
Yeah.
I think it is quite hard.
And 2 of the movies I can think of that I really enjoy as well. The first one is Panic Room with Jodie Foster and Forrest Whitaker. You know, like the mother and the kid got stuck inside the panic room. The second movie I can think of is Phone Booth by with Colin Farrell.
I don't think I've seen either of those movies. I do know of them. The one I was thinking of, not to the extreme, but like the premise. Room?
Yeah.
With why have I forgotten the actress's name?
The Room.
Not The Room. I think it's Room.
Okay, I don't think I know of that movie.
I can't remember the who played Captain Marvel.
Brie Larson.
Yes.
Yeah, Brie
she
Larson.
gets kidnapped and stuck in a room. And she gets assaulted and has a kid.
Yes.
So she has this kid in this room for like a majority of the movie before they like get out.
Yeah.
That's like a similar vibe of being stuck in a spot, not to the extreme of buried, but like a similar premise of like isolated in an area. But it deals with more of the like psychology behind it and stuff through the movie. But it's hard though. That's what I mean. It's hard because you really have to get your story fleshed out.
Yeah.
And like what you're going for, because I think it could be a real easy mess. To be like, here's one actor in a coffin.
But that's what I like though, because of the limitation of space and the surroundings.
Yeah.
They have to think of all the extra things they can do. And and that's why I mean, like, I wish that they would make more movies like this.
Because
like
even the
really
performance as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is one of the best I've seen Ryan act.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, he really does he does a great job. Like, there's still moments of like what he's great at, like the wit and humor. But obviously it's hard when you're stuck in a box and you think you're dying or going to die, right?
Yeah.
And it's great. Like, so literally after the sequence of him like figuring out what the hell's going on, he like freaks out a lot and like trying to figure out what he's going to do. He is like ringing. I think he is ringing before he realizes he has a phone in there.
Yes. And the phone rang, and I think the first call he received was from the kidnapper. Like, well, he turned on the phone. And then it was all in Arabic.
Yeah.
And
It's all in Arabic.
What's going on? So I think that's how he kind of pieces together. Oh, I might be kidnapped in this country. And then from the conversation that he had with the people,
because he tries to call
phone,
his wife, right?
Yes.
And then she doesn't answer because she left her phone at home. I'm like, what a day to do it. And then who does he call? I feel like he tried, because obviously we're a bit blessed now that it's easy for us to like save phone numbers, but he has to like write it down because he does have a pen. He's like trying to write down the numbers he calls or even things that call him. So he's trying to like figure it out. I thought that was great as well.
Yeah, that's a very good detail. And I think this is what captures the audience, because they can, like when they watch the movie, they try to figure out what they would do in that situation.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have the same objects, you have a few pens, you have a Zippo, you have
a lighter.
A lighter.
He finds a torch later.
Yeah.
And when you're right, when the kidnappers call him and it's like, you've got to film like a ransom note.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you say? Like, need $10 million. And he's like, soldier. He's like, I'm not a soldier. I'm just like a truck driver.
Yeah.
And I do like that aspect of him just being, again, yet another worker.
Yeah.
Like he isn't someone like greatly significant.
Yeah.
He's just a dude doing his job because he thought he might get paid well.
Yeah.
And he never thought, he says it a lot in this film. He's like, I didn't think it'd be like this.
Yeah.
Which is like the brutal kind of, brutal story of this movie. But it's kind of great that it's just like, his whole conversation is like, $1 million, get me $1 million. He's like, all right, I'll try to find someone that's going to get me this money.
Yeah. And I think the first people that he tried to call was 911.
Yeah.
And then they didn't believe him. They said, exactly. If you are buried alive, then how can you have a phone, etc. And then they hung up on him. And then I think the people that he called the most are the operators. Can you get me this phone number? Etc. But which I think is a very smart move.
Yeah.
But there are so many sequence and acting sequences in this movie that I really enjoy.
There was a lot.
It really showcased his acting chops. One of my favorites is when he had the conversation with the hiring manager, the HR manager of the company.
You mean a bit later or a bit later in the film?
A bit later. So he called the company first.
Yeah, that was brutal.
That was heartbreaking.
He calls him first and leaves a message to be like, stuck underground.
Yeah.
In Iraq and don't know where the hell I am.
Yeah.
And then they call him back later. I think this is a bit later and he's contacted like the government.
Yeah.
And they put him through to someone local who deals with like kidnappings and ransoms.
Yeah.
And he's talking to him. And then a bit late, I think must be the later half of the film when they call him, his work calls him back. And he's like, they like give him a little brief. He's like, hey, by the way, I'm going to record. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, mate, you should have just said no and hung up.
Yeah. That sequence to me is like extremely heartbreaking because, like right up until this point, like we are really rooting for this main character to escape and, get back to his family and things like that. And then when you get a call back from your company and the hiring manager, at first he was like trying to comfort him as well. Don't worry. We're working on this case, etc.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the recording and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah,
like,
as soon as you hear that, you're like,
man.
okay, this is going to be... Because he says... he asks him who he is, what his like position is, and then he's like, what's something about your insurance? And then he's like, oh, have you been in an intimate relationship with one of the other workers who has also been kidnapped?
Yeah.
And he's just like, what are you talking about? He's like, we have like evidence that you were having an affair with this lady and that goes against our guidelines and you were fired this morning. So your insurance will not cover. Yeah. Like what will happen if you die here, you will not be covered. Yeah. And I'm like, and he's just like, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. I'm like, how could, he's already in like a terrible situation with like no way out. Yeah. And then the work's just like, yeah, you. Yeah. We're not paying this shit out. We're not paying your family the insurance and we are not liable for any of this. Yeah. Just because he might have made, and like Huynh said it like a little bit because she's kidnapped as well. Yeah. The only other like person we see in this film because he gets sent her ransom video and he like freaks out a little bit because he's like, oh, what the like I need, he hadn't sent the ransom film at this point because he's just like what's it going to get me? And then he sees her, he's like, oh shit, I need to do this just for her sake as well, right? Mm-hmm. Which seems reasonable as like a human. It's like, oh, I don't want to be, the one that does her in. Mm. And then she gets shot like on camera as well. And you can see it hurts him a little bit, but you didn't realize like, I think it shows a little bit, but maybe not enough. So it's like up in the air to be like up to the viewer to be like, did it or didn't it happen? Yeah. Because he denies it. Yeah. But, it's still up in the air for like the viewer to say like, oh, was there something there or wasn't there something? But it can be a case of the companies trying to frame that on him as well. Yeah. Because like you'd like to think if someone was caught in this situation, they're like, oh, I'm not going to because that's what you see, right? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, the company's just trying to get their way out of this, right? Mm. And it's just like, oh, here's something. Mm. That's what it felt like you're saying. And that's what it felt like to me as well. Yeah. Because it's just like, oh, we can get out of this. Yeah. Even though I feel like if this got into the news, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, for some reason, the day he was buried, the insurance cut out because apparently he was having an affair. And that's even like, if that comes out, that hurts his wife and his child as well to be like, oh, that's something they weren't aware of. So it's like even more than it could be.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so like our character is has already been going through a lot, and now like the company that he's put the time and effort and probably the main reason why he's in the situation in the first place.
And to pay for his family, right?
Yeah. Oh no, I mean like the company set up in this country, knowing full well the risk.
Yeah, this could happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's like obviously he's doing this dangerous job. I'm assuming he's going to get paid pretty well, and even the insurance. At the very least, if he's in this situation, even though it's bad and it's terrible, like at least there's going to be something there for his family. But then that gets taken away, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing for him, essentially.
Yeah. And surprisingly, when this movie came out, this was considered a good date movie because, like, when you watch this, like, the couples will be like, "Oh, what's going to happen to him?"
In that kind of sense.
Yeah.
I don't think so. If I was like going on a date or would like be with a partner and be like, "Oh, you want to watch Buried?" It's very good for like. Would you be able to call me if you're buried underground in the desert in Afghanistan?
Yeah. But
would you cheat on me in Afghanistan or Iraq?
Yeah. Probably that's why like a lot of people online, they were saying like this movie was like a really good date movie because
this is a joke.
It's kind of generates a lot of conversations and questions. And
definitely not.
Another sequence that I really like is when he filmed himself. Doing a will for his family.
Yeah. That
was good as well.
Because it already seemed so like hopeless, right?
Yeah.
And when he was doing that, what was it? I can't remember what he thought. Was it? Did the bombs hit? They bombed the area, and his coffin was breaking down.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so
he
his coffin had been broken. Yeah,
and the sand was coming in. So this is the point. He's like, "Well, I'm dead.
Yeah,
there's no hope." So that's why he films the will because he's like, "I'm done."
Yeah.
And even then, even when he's saying the will, he's like, I leave my like $5 in my balance to my wife.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I guess my kid can have my clothes, I guess. Like it's so brutal because there's not much, to give, but also it's his final message to his family, but it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I feel like all this movie is pretty brutal.
Yeah. And after the movie was out, during the interviews, Ryan Reynolds said that this movie gave him claustrophobia because he had been so the shooting of this movie went on for like a month or 2 months, and he was always inside that box. They made different boxes so that they can set up like different camera
shots.
angles,
Yeah.
right? But during the sequence at the end, the coffin was slowly filled with sand. And during that time, he really felt like he would die. So probably a lot of the acting during that time was real. Real fear. And in the end, like the ending of this movie is extremely heartbreaking as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he was on the call with the agent.
Yeah,
and
because they said they found him, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, at first he could feel that the coffin was shaking. Yeah. So he thought that, okay, this is a bombing.
When the coffin breaks, they get bombed.
Yes.
Because he finds the number of the terrorists.
Yeah.
And he sends it to the guy, I can't remember his name now. And then like, and then they hears bombing later. So they bomb the area where they may have thought the signal was coming from. But even that was wrong because later off they call him again to be like, oh, we need another video.
Yeah.
Because they're like, if you don't give us another video, we're going to find your kids and your wife, and we're going to bleed, make them bleed and kill them. And it's like, oh my God. And this is his coffin is still filling up with sand and he's dealing with this. Yeah, and then like you said at the end, they're like, he calls the agent, the agent that's going to save him, calls him up. And he's like, oh, we're going to save you. We're going to save you. We know where you are. There's an agent we found that says they know where they buried a guy.
And that's unfortunate. And I really like the detail of like, even when he had the hope of escape, he had that hope of escape, and he asked the agent to call him back so that he could call his wife because his wife was calling him.
His wife finally called him, and they have like the first conversation of the whole film. And he's like, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. They're going to get me out. They're going to be, I'm going to be safe. And then when he's finished the conversation and calls the agent calls him back, and he's like, oh shit. It was Mitch White.
Yeah.
Mark White.
Mark White.
The other guy that he said he saved.
And then
he's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That ending is really, really dark. Really, really heartbreaking.
About halfway through, I'm like, I wonder how this will end. Because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, will they actually save him? But I do think it does suit the story better for him to like killed, essentially.
Yeah.
Because it's just like when he's talking to the agent earlier on, they're like, oh, yeah, we've saved people. And the guy, Ryan's literally like, nah.
You don't care
lying.
about me.
You don't care about me.
Yeah. And I really liked part of the conversation when he told the agent, like, just lie to me. Just tell me that at least you saved someone, just so that I have something to believe in.
And then that's what it plays, because he writes the name down on the
Mark
coffin.
White, yeah.
And then that's why it's even more brutal at the end, because it's like, did he even save anybody?
Yeah. I really enjoy the movie that is set in one location, like buried, like the phone booth, as I mentioned. And I really wish that they would make more movies like this.
I think it's difficult because I think it requires a lot. I will say one more thing before we maybe finish off about Buried. Did you think the snake thing was weird?
Yes.
I really thought, I remember, and I'm like, what the f*** is there a snake in here as well?
Yes.
This guy's buried underground already, like in a terrible situation. Now there's a snake involved. I'm like,
yes.
I thought it was a little unnecessary.
Yes.
I thought they let's bring in some more like drama and stuff. I'm like, it didn't need it. It was already in a pretty terrible situation.
Yes.
Like everything else was doing a fairly good job.
Yes.
And then I'm like, the snake thing, I'm like, what?
Yes. And I think they were trying to use the snake to lead him to the hole in the coffin. Right. So it would give the audience the false sense of like, oh, there might be a chance that he can use the hole to get out, or this is where he gets the oxygen from, etc. But it also led to another illogical thing as well. Can snake crawl underground? I don't think they can.
Yeah, that's why I was even thinking. I'm like, where did it come from? Like, was it on him sleeping or something?
Yeah.
And then like wakes up at it's like, oh, this is a good time to scare the shit out of him.
But he was moving around the coffin as well.
Yeah, so I'm like, because he tries to burn it, obviously, and I'm like, well, this is fucked.
Yeah.
I just like. I can see why they did it, but I don't think it was necessary.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm like, oh, this is a bit... I remember, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, this guy's buried underground, already in a terrible situation.
I think they needed something to throw the audience off a little bit.
Do you reckon? I feel like they were just trying to break it up with some, like, action.
Yeah.
I feel like, we need to have something a bit dramatic happen in here, apart from just Ryan Reynolds, trying to figure out how the he's going to live through.
But that snake is not very logical. I think you're right. I think the movie doesn't need that part.
No, I think because that's what I was thinking about. There's so much already going on with him, like trying to figure out how to get out, who he needs to call, how he needs to save battery life, figuring out like different things. Does he need to like work with the terrorists and stuff like that? So I thought there was already enough going on without the snake. But that was like maybe the only thing I really thought was a bit bad about the film, because I think the rest of it was amazing.
Yeah.
Even the ending. When I saw the ending, I'm like, because the last words were literally the agent being like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
They're like the final things of the film, and I'm like,
yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, I think before we wrap up this movie, I want to bring up another thing as well. This is after he recorded his ransom video. And then the agent called him and said, oh, your video is already on the news.
YouTube. Yeah, it's on YouTube and stuff.
Like
getting
100,000 of views. And for some reason, during that sequence, I thought like, they don't really care about his life. They care about the reputation of the company, of the government.
Yeah. All of them were more worried about the image.
Which is extremely terrible.
Because he just wants to get out, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Because even literally right at the end, when they're saying they're going to go after his family, because they said, oh, you need to cut up a finger and film it. And that's like one of the last things he does is like film himself like cutting off his finger and stuff, which is like brutal as well. When this is like near the end of the film when he like dies. So it's like...
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah. All right. I think we talk about depressing stuff enough. And of course, that we can't really do an episode about Ryan Reynolds without talking about Deadpool.
Definitely not.
So by the time of this episode, Deadpool and Wolverine has already hit theaters. Up until this point, Deadpool 2, 1 and 2 has generated nearly $1.5 billion on a total budget of $160 million. Pretty good. It's like super amazing. And I'm pretty sure by now you guys have seen a lot of interviews between Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds promoting the movie with the director Sean as well. A small thing that I want to bring up during this conversation is the disappearance of Weasel, the character Weasel, Deadpool's best friend on the movie, played by T.J. Miller. So there was a small drama mini series online, but up until this point, I'm pretty convinced that T.J. Miller brought this beef of himself
Okay.
and try to either get more money or he
More
just
screen time or
more
just
screen time
something for
or
himself.
just to stay a bit relevant in the spotlight, I guess. But the timeline is, in 2016, the first Deadpool came out, and it just became this huge thing. Generated $782.6 million on a budget of $58 million. Sorry, and during this filming, he went on a podcast and he did an interview, and he was like, during Deadpool, there was a very weird moment. Ryan Reynolds asked me to do one more take, but during that take, he was extremely mean to me. But not to the character, but to me.
To him. Okay.
So what he said was, you know what grace about you, Weasel? You're not the star. You do just enough exposition that is funny, and then we can leave you and get back to the real movie.
Damn.
And that's it. So after that, TJ Miller felt like, Ryan Reynolds was being really mean to him. And during the interview, he said, like, after the first Deadpool, after it became successful, Ryan Reynolds became a different person.
Okay.
Then he's like, like he has this image of the nice guy and nice family, but outside of that, he's a very difficult person, apparently. But literally 1 week after that, he went on a different interview. He said, Ryan Reynolds
He's a great guy.
emailed me and apologized for the situation. He was like, I didn't know that you were upset about that, etc., etc. And then he was like, yeah, we talked, and then now we're all good.
Well, there you go.
So,
Well, I could see that. If someone said that to you and you're like, oh, come on.
but the thing is, like, that TJ Miller is a bit of a controversial guy. Like, he doesn't really have a future.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's very hard to really believe what he's saying is true or not.
And, well, like, that's what I mean. And it's always hard with Hollywood and actors because no one knows them, right? Because, like, I've seen a lot of interviews leading up to Deadpool 3 with, like, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I've watched a few of them. And they seem like really down-to-earth guys. And they're no one's very arrogant, I would say. They're both, like, they talk each other up a lot and are very kind and friendly with each other. They are friends, though, so it's, like, a bit easier, like, compared to maybe just, like, another actor or guy. But that's what I mean. They do come across very, real. But that's what I mean. We don't, we can only speculate.
Yeah.
And, unless it's actually filmed and someone could show us, like the Christian Bale thing when he's screaming at people.
Yeah.
So, or even like Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise has a similar clip where he goes nuts at some people.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Unless something like that comes out, like it's all he said, she said. And even like you said, it was like a week later and they're like, oh yeah, we patched it up. So even then it's like, he was a nice dude anyway. And it's like, hey, my bad.
Yeah.
It's not like, he went on about it or whatever.
Yeah. And that's what makes me think like, maybe he kind of fabricated this whole story up.
Trying to drum up some drama for himself or something.
Well, or the conspiracy is just like one of the best marketing story.
Was
for
he the one
movie.
that assassinated Trump?
But there are a few news sources mentioned that in 2017, TJ Miller faced accusation on sexual assault, and he was also called a bully by his Silicon Valley co-star.
Okay.
But then that's where it ends.
He's trying to drum up some sympathy. You're thinking, that maybe he's not as bad as it seems.
I think so.
But and it is what it is.
Yeah, but it definitely helps the movie as well because people kind of tune
drums
into
up
the drama.
more. Yeah, draws more clicks to it.
And one of the last things that he mentioned in the interview was like, even when they asked me to be in Deadpool 3 and pay me twice the money, I would still say no.
I don't think there'll be that cut if he's not in it.
Yeah.
But what do you think of the Deadpool movies as we know them so far?
I really enjoyed the first movie. I went to see it with my wife, and she was pleasantly surprised as well.
You're talking about Valentine's movies with Buried. I remember the whole rap behind this movie was, take your girlfriend, take your partner to go see Deadpool.
Yeah.
That was like his like fake advertisement for this, which I thought was great.
He was really involved in the marketing campaign for first Deadpool, and during one of the interviews with Graham Norton, he mentioned that he was the one that came up with the billboard idea of the poop emoji and the skull emoji with the L. So Deadpool L. Yeah. And they took a picture of him and his co-star Rebecca Mokarin, and they were sitting next to each other, and it was like, oh, love never dies.
Yeah.
I think up until that point, people didn't know that he has this kind of repertoire of doing marketing campaigns.
Marketing. He marketed very well for Deadpool.
Yeah,
and even like it's strange because he was successful in Hollywood at this point, right? Like it wasn't like he's, you know.
To be fair, a lot of people think that even though he was a well-known actor in Hollywood, but he was an international star.
Yeah, I probably would say that. Like he was well-known, but probably not at the level he is now.
Absolutely.
Like I think Deadpool really did, like, because it is just like the perfect Ryan Reynolds role, and I think that's why he like did so much to get this like off the ground and you know, into cinemas.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's worked out extremely well, but it's like the perfect role for him.
Yeah. It took him 11 years to get this movie made.
Yeah, because I remember it. I remember a lot of talk about it and stuff. Because I was like, oh, this is crazy how much it worked. But like it paid off. Like how many people do have like, you know, their own passion project essentially and work out so well. I feel like it rarely happens.
And he became interested in the Deadpool character when he first read the comic. And the first line that he read from the comic is, Deadpool looks like Ryan Reynolds crossed with Sharpay.
And he's like, well, this is mine. This is
mine now. This is mine.
It's built for me.
Yes.
Because he technically played Deadpool before this movie, right?
Yeah, Weapon X. I don't think we can call him Deadpool. It does have the mouth though. But I think in the end of the movie, he got mouth so shut.
Because I remember watching, he was like talking about it in an interview, and he remembers like, oh, this is sick. And like as a joke, and they're like, they're like, people thought, like the film head people thought, he's joking. And they'd be like, no, he was being sarcastic. He thinks it's terrible.
Yeah.
And it was just like, kind of Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds.
Yes. And I kind of felt bad for that Deadpool character as well. But I think it kind of makes sense for him to be that way because that movie was focusing on Wolverine more.
It's a Wolverine movie, even though it wasn't a great movie.
Yeah.
I've talked about it before, but it is what it is, right? Now they've got their own movie again together in Ryan Reynolds' hands. So we'll see how it goes.
Yes. And it seems like they are very passionate about this project. So hopefully we can have a good story. And speaking of impression of the Deadpool movies, I think this is one of the few movies that has a good sequel. So Deadpool 2 was good as well. And in Deadpool 2, it generated $734 million on a budget of $110 million. And $318.5 million was generated domestically. So people like this movie a lot. And apparently now they are making another one. And he kind of hinted that he doesn't want to make Deadpool 8. But
it depends. Like, obviously, we don't know what 3 is going to be like. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. But it'd be good to have like a good final film for like a Deadpool, right? Kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy we had. Yeah. It's nice to have like a little like story
closure.
That's complete. Yeah. Like even with the new Spider-Man trilogy, there is like a little bit of closure there, even though it does lead into more. It does have like a little tight story, whether you enjoy it or not. I think that always works out a bit better than like
trying to introduce the next one.
Yeah, the next one, keep it going and keep it going. Try to have like a tight knit story. I think it helps in the movies, like amazingly, because I feel like they don't do that too much. But anyway,
and to wrap up this episode, let's play a small trivia game on Ryan Reynolds. True or false?
True or false?
True or false?
So I can only be 50-50?
Yes. Okay, the first one. One of his good friend tried to sell the picture of his daughter online. True or false?
Oh my God. It sounds horrible. True?
It is true.
Oh my God.
So this is a story that I read online. He mentioned a good friend of his tried to sell the picture of his first daughter when she was born to the tabloids. And then she was, and he was furious. So he
wouldn't be friends anymore.
No,
oh my God.
Said, no, never talk to me ever again. And at least this story got a good ending. The tabloid didn't use the pictures.
So it just outed him as a shit friend.
Yeah, that's horrible. All right, the second trivia is Ryan Reynolds is from a family of Copts.
Is that where his humor's coming from, you reckon?
The humor.
The humor. I'm going to say true again.
Yes, it's true. So he's from a family of four brothers. Two of his brothers are policemen, and his paternal grandfather, Chester Reynolds, was a Canadian politician. And Chester was, So, and his father was a police officer as well.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yes.
Has he done a film playing a policeman?
Yes, R.I.P.D.
Oh, God, Nat. Why'd you make me remember that film? I don't know if that counts.
With
Jeff Bridges?
Jeff Bridges, yeah.
They're technically dead, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, but he did
That
play.
movie was weird as hell.
Yeah, I couldn't sit through that movie, unfortunately.
I got through it, maybe with a little help, though. So.
All right. Ryan Reynolds can only speak English and French.
And French? So 2 languages. I'm going to go false.
Yes. Well, he's Canadian. He can definitely speak English and French. But
And
he
Canadian?
Is that Canadian? He can also have conversations in Italian, Spanish, and a little bit of Irish.
Irish. Is that Irish or is that Scottish?
And next one, he's a huge.
Oh, what was the? Oh, no, you go on.
No.
I'll bring it back later. Might be involved in what I was about to say. Go ahead.
Okay. So there are so many different ones. All right.
One more.
Okay. He has a fear of flying.
I'm gonna go true.
It's true. Yes.
There we go.
So during one interview with Jimmy Fallon, he mentioned that when he was doing skydiving, and this was his 13th jump.
Oh my God.
The lucky number, right? And the parachute opened, but then it didn't open
properly.
Oh,
no.
So he was like free falling. Luckily, he opened the backup parachute. But even then, because it was so close to the ground, he lost control and he spun out of control, and he became unconscious. So when he landed, it landed far away from the point where he was supposed to land, a few miles.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I never remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Did it say when that was?
He didn't say when, but he did say it was quite. Well, this was before Green Lantern.
Okay.
So it was like 10 or 9.
That's like fucking nearly died. Like Jesus.
So after that, I'm not flying ever again. But the one good thing that came out of Green Lantern was he has to do a lot of stunts on the air because he's a pilot.
Right.
Yeah. So he helped
Get
him
over that feel.
got over that fear.
I was like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine anything worse. What I was going to mention, do you know that he owns a soccer club with the guy Rob from Sunny in Philadelphia?
Oh, yeah.
Rob McElhenney. Yeah. Wrexham?
Yeah. And apparently they just won a championship.
They just won not long ago. I think it was last year. Yeah. Because I remember I saw an ad and like Amazon was like, watch Wrexham. And I'm like, oh, that's because bloody Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney own it.
Yeah. And I watched an interview this morning when he did with Radio 1 in Britain. And one of the soccer players called up the radio show. And it was during a segment called Unpopular Opinion. And this soccer player called up and he was like, yeah, I think Rob is the best owner.
Oh, true.
And Ryan was like, yeah, I recognize this voice. This is the bloody Paul Mullany. And the final trivia. Ryan owns T-Mobile.
Owns?
Yeah, owns T-Mobile.
I'm trying to think if he's done ads for it. I'll say false.
Well, yes, it's technically false because he only owns 25%.
Oh, there you go.
But he owns 25% of Mint Mobile. That's the company that he advertised for.
Oh, okay. I think I do remember that.
And this company was acquired by T-Mobile.
Ah, there you go.
So technically,
I do remember that. I do remember that he got bought out because he's got his own tequila or alcohol.
Gin.
Aviator
gin.
All the bloody rich people do that, don't they? They're like, got to have a spirits.
A spirits or a perfume.
Vodka,
or coffee beans like the Laughing Man coffee bean by Hugh Jackman.
Oh, maybe we'll have to try that one day.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another episode. All the Hollywood's rip-off alcohol / product.
Yes.
Product placement.
Yes. Well, I think this is the end of this episode. If you haven't seen Deadpool 3, definitely go to the theaters.
We will be going to watch it as well.
Yeah, and then we will give you guys the overview and the review of the movie. But until next time, I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
This has been Movie Beings.